All right. Welcome back to the Youth 2.0 Virtual Summit. We are now live, and there's a bunch of new people joining in on different social media, and I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us today. The water's warm, come on in. This summit is an opportunity to connect and introspect with hundreds of young people here today for a self-transformative weekend full of amazing keynote speakers, invigorating discussions, and memorable activities. We're going to get to enjoy some prolific and eclectic keynote speakers, make friends and memories. Hop along for the ride.
First, we'd like to start off by thanking our partners for today's event. Their support is what's allowed us to not only create this Youth 2.0 seminar, but build this community of young adults that will soon grow in many more events to come. Now, for today's keynote, our summit participants will have a chance to ask our keynote speakers several questions, so make sure throughout the keynote you use the Q&A feature in Zoom to do so. Our keynote speakers for today will be Annika Sharma and Nehal Tenany of the Woke Desi podcast. So let's introduce our interviewer for today's keynote first. Ali Aird is a shiatsu therapist for work and a heartfulness meditation trainer for fun. A movement, massage, and meditation enthusiast, she encourages the healing potential present in everyone and strives to facilitate the movement of wellness towards effective methods that are holistic, collaborative, inside out, and full of heart. Please welcome Ali Aird.
Hey, thank you for that welcome. I'm so happy to be here with Youth 2.0 and even more excited to introduce our guests. We have with us today Annika Sharma, joining us from New York City, where she works as a health communications manager by day and an author by night. She has one book already in print, The Rearranged Life, and she's got many more on the way. Over on the other side of the country, in San Francisco, we have Nehal Tenany, who is a digital marketing specialist. She knows all the hidden depths of branding, content creating, hashtag trending, you name it. She's also an editor for Brown Girl magazine and spends her spare time as a lifestyle, fashion, and travel blogger. As if all that wasn't enough, the two of them have also come together to co-host their own podcast, The Woke Desi, which aired its first episode 1 year ago and has been growing ever since. Annika, Nehal, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. This is super exciting. I'm really excited to be here and answer some of your questions and also talk about mental health.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited. We really appreciate all of you guys being here. I know the world is a little bit heavy right now between what recent events and also the lockdown. So we really appreciate you guys taking the time to grow a little bit on your own and to be here with us and hopefully learn something from us too.
I'm personally impressed with your accomplishments, but beyond just having sort of glossy resumes that check all the boxes, you seem to have really manifested into the world these passion projects that are full of creativity and personality and meaning and impact. And that's exactly the kind of thing we hope to encourage young people to do. So let's just start the conversation. What is the Woke Desi?
Nehal, do you want to take this one or do you want me to take it?
It's all you.
So the Woke Desi is a podcast, as you mentioned earlier, and we are largely talking about things that affect the South Asian population. And that is everything that is kind of whispered about within our community. So that can sometimes be as simple as dating, which seems like a lighthearted topic, but is pertinent to most everybody. And, we talk about infertility and miscarriage and how that's whispered about, or LGBTQ issues. We did an episode on anti-Blackness, which is obviously pertinent now. And our views are changing every single day as all of these events keep happening. And we've done episodes that just circle around things that are really just not that talked about within our community. And a lot of friends of ours have tuned in who are not actually South Asian, but just want to learn more because we do take up 1 out of every 6 people. And so, you'll probably encounter a South Asian if you aren't one already. So we definitely like to talk about things that are a little bit challenging and kind of force us to grow as well. And we've been on air for about a year last week, actually. And we put out about 52 episodes so far. And it's definitely been a journey.
And it definitely started with Annika putting out a call on Facebook. And I applied for her podcast that she wanted to start along with a bunch of other people, and we narrowed it down to eventually 6 people. Obviously, as you know, having 6 people on a podcast can be really hectic. Everyone has different schedules, its creative directions are just kind of chaotic, and it ended up just going down to 3 people. And then that went down further, and then it was just Annika and I could not be more happy because we are just like a power team together. We have built this company now because we're officially an LLC over the last year. And we just hope to foster a community, get people to start talking about South Asian topics, not even just South Asian, but things that are happening around the world, as Annika mentioned, and just having that conversation.
So I just want to make this clear, right? These people met online on the internet. Tell me, how many times have you guys met in person?
2.
Twice.
And I'm her bridesmaid now. I'm her
The
bridesmaid.
third time will be at my wedding in October.
Yeah. Okay. So y'all are a testament to, number one, what can be accomplished together through the internet, and also like how deep of a relationship we can cultivate with basically total strangers.
Yeah, it really is magical.
Trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really magical. You just put out that sort of, not only the energy out there, but you just put out your intention for something to work out the way that you hope it does. And it has worked out just leagues beyond my wildest dreams, I think. Nehal has been an incredible partner. And most of all, now she's become one of my best friends. And we spend the whole day talking. If anybody watches us, we're probably on our phones texting each other about not only podcast stuff, but life things. And so it's been incredible just to be able to put out this call on Facebook to 20,000 people and then to manage to find your business partner and just totally change the trajectory of your life just by simply putting out the intention out there.
And I really think that our age difference helps a lot also because, you know, I know a lot of the trends happening, the big things in pop culture entertainment, but then when I need like that wise voice or some empathy and maturity, that's Annika. That's all Annika.
For the record, before we make it sound like I'm 927 years old and she's like this baby, we have 7 years between us. We could actually be siblings. But I'm in my early 30s and Nehal is in her mid 20s. And so even though I make fun of her for graduating college 3.5 seconds ago, we do have a little bit of life experience between us, and our interests are similar and different enough that we can play off each other. I don't always follow everything she's following. She doesn't always follow everything I'm following, but I'll be like, hey, you need to check this thing out. And she'll be like, hey, you just need to hear about what this person did and why we need to talk about it. And so it ends up making us grow, which is great.
It seems like a nice balance, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Awesome. So one of the elements of your podcast that you mentioned that's so compelling to me is that it does address topics that are taboo, especially in ways that are specific to South Asian experience, but also more generally. And here we are at the end of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So fair warning to listeners, we are going to talk about this in the spirit of, loving, accepting, spirit of destigmatization and mutual support. So I'll just open the floor if you guys would like to share what your emotional, psychological landscapes have been like throughout your life, throughout your youth, throughout your careers, stresses.
So one of the funny things I was thinking about as we went into this morning and I was planning ahead for my day was realizing that a lot of you guys out there today are sort of in the younger years in terms of either being in high school or being in your early to mid 20s and kind of getting out in the world and really exploring. And obviously this is the time where all of your attitudes are changing and life changes. And this is sort of the crazy period of your time where you realize who you want to be and how to get there. And one of the things that I realized that I definitely want to share is that everything I thought I would be in my high school years is nothing like what I actually turned out to be. And I think I'm much more happy for it. So if there's anything that I would like to kind of put out there, and then I hope that you guys really take to heart, it's the fact that you might have a plan in high school, or you might have a plan in your early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, 30s, that your life should go a certain way, or it should be a linear trajectory of success. But everybody knows that success is never linear. It's always a series of not only screw ups, but also really, really good things that take you to unexpected places. But it's also one of those things that sometimes doors open that are unexpected and you need to walk through them, and it will change your life and you have to be braced for it. And one of the things mentally that I have struggled with throughout my life essentially is depression and anxiety. And in high school, it didn't really manifest a whole lot. I slept a lot sometimes, but besides that, it wasn't too bad. College, same thing. Then it was grad school. I have 2 master's degrees. And during my first master's degree, I didn't really feel it a whole lot. I was actually in a pretty good place, but by my second one, I was starting to have panic attacks. And those were sometimes these moments where I felt like I really had to be confined and I had to sit. You would find me in like a closet or in my bathtub or in like really random places where I was just like, I need to be completely sequestered and alone and kind of, I felt like I was falling apart and I was just exploding all over the place. So it was really nice for me to feel contained in these tiny spots. And one of the things that I had to really learn to manage throughout my 20s was how to deal with those anxiety attacks and still be able to move forward and still continue to grow and still to continue to learn. And it's okay to have what you perceive as an imperfection in your mental health because it's not, it's just part of your journey. And for my own mental health, one of the things that I really did turn to was faith and meditation and medication and talking to my doctor, of course, and, other outlets and doing what it took to kind of get back on track and get my mental health to a place where I could operate. But it's definitely a lifelong journey, and mental health is a lifelong journey. And so is success. And all those things are always tied together and they can influence each other. And, it can definitely sort of impact how you operate and how you see the world.
I'm definitely at a different place in my life than Annika is. But for me, I feel as being in my mid 20s, a lot of times the decisions I make every day are going to impact in a really big way. So everything that I do, it's a lot of pressure on me to make sure that that career thing is going to be successful or that next step or relationship is going to be successful. And that's all the pressure that I put onto myself now. And lately, similar to Annika, I've been having panic attacks and a lot of anxiety with the decisions I've been making, hoping that the turnout will be okay and that everything will be okay. And it's really hard to kind of tell yourself, okay, it's okay that there's going to be ups and downs, and it's okay that you may not succeed in certain areas of your life, and you can do something that you've never even thought that you wanted to do. But kind of realizing that has been really difficult for me. And so I've gone to journaling and just planning a lot. So, like, writing every thought down, writing down like what steps in my career I would want to take or what steps in my life I want to take, and seeing how I can achieve that. I've also been kind of reserved with my friends and family about mental health because I always think that I'm going to be a burden on people, or I don't want to talk about it too much because who wants to hear about my life and like all the problems I'm going through all the time. But lately, I've definitely been open with my best friends and especially my sister just about how I've been feeling and telling them like I'm not really okay today and I need someone to talk to because I feel like I'm spiraling into this like dark hole and I don't know what to do anymore. And I think that realizing that and being able to share it with someone is super important.
Yeah, for sure. I'm remembering my own first experience with sort of severe psychological pain was definitely like freshman year of college, feeling disconnected from all the places and people and activities that kind of formed my identity. And to top it all off, I was also like in a theater dorm, and like theater people, bless your souls, you are very enthusiastic people. And like when you're feeling down and everyone else around you is bubbly, expressing themselves through music and dance, you almost, in retrospect, I realized that I was actually quite jealous. I wanted to be able to connect with people and in a sort of lighthearted, playful way. And I resonate with what you're saying about just feeling kind of like closed in on yourself.
Yeah, and it's really hard during the pandemic because you don't really have out to go somewhere or release that. The gym used to be my place where I used to release all of that energy, and now I don't have that. I used to be a dancer. I don't know how to take those classes. Doing it virtually for me doesn't cut it. I need to be in that atmosphere in order to feel like myself again. And so it's definitely becoming harder and harder as shelter in place gets extended, but it's also making sure that you're okay and putting your mental health priority because that is something you can control.
What have been your top 2 or 3 tools for dealing with your mental
A
wellness?
lot of them have actually been things that you guys have already covered. Journaling is what Nehal was saying earlier, and I just saw that you guys did a session, a quick journaling moment. I know that one of my very best friends is involved with heartfulness, and she really relies on journaling to get through things, and meditating or just taking that moment for yourself. Sometimes you really need to ground yourself and learn, maybe deep breaths help, maybe meditation helps, maybe prayer helps, and know that moments alone are really okay. It's okay to kind of ground yourself because other people can't do it for you. And the other thing that I turn to a lot is writing. And I realize that that's very similar to journaling, but it's a creative outlet for me. As you mentioned, I'm an author. And for me, a lot of my pain, a lot of my happiness can be taken out on these pretend characters that I'm writing, creating, and just sort of putting out into the world, right? And that serves as an outlet in and of itself. The podcast serves as an outlet in and of itself. Just the ability to be able to express yourself in whatever way is comfortable for you. So I used to be a painter. I used to do a lot of artwork. And so whatever methodology can bring out all of your feelings in a way that feels healthy and kind of just a cleanse for you, I think is the best thing to do.
Yeah, and similar to what Annika said, I also have my own blog, and I think a lot of the blog posts that I've been writing recently mirrors what I've been going through in my life, and hopefully it can help other people. I recently wrote a blog post about how to be more productive because I think I was struggling with that. I was, again, falling in this spiral of, am I being productive enough? Are people being too productive? How productive am I compared to other people? And so on one of the tips that I wrote, I talked about how it's easy for you to compare yourself to people on social media. And so that is like the biggest thing for me. I try to do a lot of partnerships on social media and be a thought leader and influencer, but you can't help but compare yourself to what everybody else is doing in every aspect, especially now that you have more time to be on social media.
This is very interesting, the sort of connection between like interpersonal relationships, community, and mental health, right? I sometimes received mixed messages about, if you're not feeling well, you should reach out to people, you should connect with people. But on the other hand, like, oh my gosh, protect your aura, like cut out all the toxicity if people are being mean to you. Like, how have you navigated, like, have you in your own experience had to like, set boundaries? Has that been difficult? Do you try to give people the benefit of the doubt when they're not understanding how you're feeling?
That's actually a really good question, because I think that as women, we're often taught, and I know that there's plenty of guys out there, so, just understand what your comrades are going through right now. But I think there's a lot of pressure generally to constantly forgive, to be take the high road, and to constantly be like, it's okay, give them the benefit. And it's a good thing, but you have to figure out for yourself, how many chances did I give them? Is this a situation that long term will actually impact me negatively? And that doesn't mean, is it just irritating? Because that might not necessarily be a reason to walk away, or to, to be rude, or to completely throw something away. But you really have to know yourself, I think, ultimately, to know what your boundaries are, and to be comfortable with, okay, this is sort of the line that I'm not willing to let other people cross. And this is sort of the line that I'm willing to cross myself. And you really, really have to do a lot of introspection to be able to get to that point, to realize, okay, cool, I'm comfortable cutting this person off because they're saying something that goes over that line, that goes into this sort of non-negotiable territory. These are the values that I stand by. And if they've crossed them, then that's the point where I can't really associate anymore. And so, yeah, I think that there's definitely, one of the things that I know you and I discussed before was, there's kind of this mentality of, this rising generation, millennials, and this younger generation as well, that we're so soft, that we're just like, oh, you did something wrong, we're cutting you off, it's over, you're just too toxic for my life. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that this rising attitude also gives us the opportunity to connect more, but it also lets us choose who we want to connect with, and whether, that vibe connects well with us and really pushes us forward, or whether we're at the point where we can be like, this isn't right for me. I can walk away, but I will be able to find something something that's really powerful and valuable that can replace it. And I think that we just have more choice now as well to be able to do those things.
And on the topic of boundaries, also, I feel like rejection is something that can happen. Suppose you're opening up to someone and they're responding at first, and then later, as you keep bringing the topic up, because obviously it's still bothering you, and they start to be like, okay, well, you can just deal with it, or you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I think that hurts me. And so I just stopped telling that person anymore and things. And that could be a parent, that could be a boyfriend, that could be a sibling. I think that once we establish those boundaries with someone and how much they're willing to put in to help you with your mood, help you with feeling better or a little bit better, you can realize how much importance they have in your life.
And part of that boundary setting is also, once again, going back to knowing who you are, knowing what you value, and knowing what you need in that moment. Because you have to also be able to convey it. People are not going to read your mind. So there comes a certain point where you have to say, you know, do you want me to be a friend? Do you want me to give you advice? Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? And likewise, you have to be able to say, I need you to do X, Y, and Z so that I can get my head on straight right now because I'm losing it.
And that actually happened this morning with Annika. And I was talking to her about something that I was going through. And the first question she asked me was, do you need advice or do you want me to listen to you? And I was like, I need advice. Like I want you to listen to me, but I need advice right now. And I think that approach is amazing because sometimes I think I do this too, where I'm helping someone out, but they didn't ask for it. So it just comes off more as a burden or more like, why are you giving your opinion so much? So you want to make sure you can understand what the person needs. And it can be anything from I need some help to feel better, or it could be something larger like I need advice or I need you to do this for me in order for me to feel a certain way. But also at the end of the day, you can't bank on someone to make you feel better. I think that's really important to not put all your kind of eggs in a basket and say, okay, you're going to make me feel better. No, but what do you need from them? What do you need from them?
This is interesting. I mean, it brings up the idea that in order to be able to communicate clearly your needs, you have to have your own internal clarity on what your needs are, which is not that straightforward.
Not at all. It's so hard. You can go in circles and circles trying to decide what exactly you need because sometimes you don't. Is it a hug? Do you just need a hug?
Yeah, I don't think we know ourselves that well. And I think that's the power of, these sort of meditative or, self-reflective, introspective practices. Have you ever found that you like voiced a need and then after the fact you're like, oh God, that's not what I did at all?
All the time. My entire life is a series. Yeah. I always joke with my friends that, my memoir someday will just be titled "Oops." Like, I didn't get it right, but I think that it's good to feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's good even with yourself to sit down and really like kind of sit in it and think through, why do I feel that way? Or like, what's really driving me? Am I making the right choice right now for me? And, is this the best way that I can be my best self? And those conversations are really sometimes challenging to have and uncomfortable to have. And sometimes they feel like a waste of time. But if you have them with yourself, then you understand where you're going and what you need. And then that lets you broadly and, more like clearly communicate with the people around you to be able to go in the direction that you want to go in. And it's like you said, sometimes that clarity is just not there. And sometimes you're like, I really need a hug. And then you get the hug and you're like, that's not what I needed.
No, I don't need that hug.
I didn't need the hug. I needed to talk to somebody. And then, they're like, sorry. Okay, that's fine. Talk to me. And then you talk and you're like, that wasn't it either. So you have to know what works for you and what works for you in certain situations, right? You need to be able to have that conversation with yourself.
Especially when you talk to someone, I think that you go in with this intention that, okay, I hope this person agrees with everything I'm saying. And then all of a sudden they're not agreeing. And you're like, okay, wait, I don't want to talk to you anymore. You don't get where I'm coming from, but that's what you wanted from the beginning. So I think it's really important and this is where journaling comes in for me. I think it's really important for you to write down or figure out what those needs are, what you need from a situation to make you feel better and your mental health be better overall.
To have other people understand you, you need to understand yourself, right? At the end of the day, you need to be able to understand your needs and your goals and your wants and your desires in order to be able to convey it so that other people can give you those things and that you can provide them. It has to be like a two-way street. And you really, really need to get on that level with yourself and understand exactly what drives you forward.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I found it very helpful sometimes when I'm having conflict with another person and like we're both in a bad state, and it's like, it's not as straightforward. Oh, one person can be there for this person.
Yeah.
But kind of like separately reflect and write about how we're feeling without even interacting first and then like come at each other from.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And I think that that's something that even comes with feedback. How sometimes people say, well, I think you could be better at, or like, maybe, and sometimes even your parents, when they come at you with the best of intentions and they're like, I think you guys could do this so differently. And you're just like,
no,
really? Say it again, and like, but I think that it's one of those things where, if you can give yourself that strength to walk away for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or a night, like sleep on it, and then really let it sink in what they're trying to say, then sometimes you can actually approach the conversation better. That's not always, that's kind of a luxury. Sometimes you don't have that time to take away from the conversation. But if you could just give yourself even 3 seconds to really listen to what that person has to say, whether it's feedback or whether it's, just someone arguing with you, and you can just take those 3 extra seconds and put yourself in their shoes, it might actually help you turn around your entire opinion or be able to convey what you think even better.
Yeah, that comes into this kind of back to the sensitivity issue, right? You know, people say we're a sensitive generation, which
Yeah.
may be true, but I think that that is just as much a boon as it is a difficulty, right? Like, yes, we might be sensitive, we might get hurt a little easily, but we could also be sensitive to what other people are feeling. We could turn that around and try to be, listening and.
Yeah, that's such a good point, especially now. I feel like it's so timely because, there's people who are losing family members due to the virus, or people who are losing, lives due to all the anti-Blackness and in the world. And, there's so much happening right now that it can be very, very overwhelming. There's a whole lot of noise happening right now. And I think that going off of what you were just saying, that sensitivity is quietly a blessing. You can let it really get to you, and there are going to be days where you're just like, I am not having this. I can't. This is just too much. I need to take a break. But then other days, there's going to be moments where that empathy and that compassion are going to come out in a way where you're like, all right, I am really going to be able to relate to this person and help them. And maybe that can change me too. One of the things recently, with all of this sort of the dialogue starting around George Floyd was really examining, for example, in the South Asian population, what our anti-Blackness tendencies tend to be, because even within our own communities, we have lots and lots of anti-Blackness happening. So that was a really, really good moment to have a conversation with our families or have conversations with loved ones and sort of level with them and be like, let me think about this for a second. Let me really, really empathize with the communities that are going through this and learn more. And that sensitivity can be incredibly humbling, and it can be such a beautiful place that growth can happen, because you are able to look at where the other people are coming from and really, really try and understand and learn and be better going forward.
Absolutely. If y'all are comfortable, I have lots of questions coming in.
Oh, please ask. Yes, I love questions.
Oh, this is super exciting.
Yes. Thank you for listening so far. Here are some questions that we have.
Sure.
The first says, I keep comparing myself with others my age and feel my personality is not interesting enough. My skills aren't advanced enough. What can I do to improve confidence in myself?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
That's a great question. I was actually
pose.
It was, oh my gosh, no, it's so funny because as I was listening to that question, I just kept thinking, oh gosh, me too.
About myself.
Yeah.
Wow, what happened to me?
Yeah. And the thing is that there's beauty in that, right? Like everybody is feeling the same way. And I'm sure that those people that are out there being interesting in your eyes are probably also thinking inwardly, like, good God, I'm the most boring person in the room. And, it's one of those things where you really get the opportunity to kind of look at yourself and in sort of relation to everybody around you and decide who you want to be. And, if everything around you is really what you want to be, sometimes those people who are really energetic might have a life that you might not necessarily align with. Right. And so it's really good to recognize that they have strengths, but so do you. And that your superpowers can be very different than other people's superpowers. And that you still have a seat at the table. Bring your chair, sit at the table, and use those superpowers, because you do have your own. And you have to really believe in that. And that once again comes back to introspection. That comes back to really leveling with yourself on what you're good at and what you're not good at. So one of the things that I can actually share about my journey is that when I was in high school, I wanted to be a doctor. Now looking back, grown-up Annika is very, very happy she did not become a doctor, because I would not have been cut out for this. But, looking back, it at that time, I was like, no, I have a lot of empathy. I'd be really good. I want to do good in the world. I want to help people. I love medicine. This is what I'm going to do. I am terrible at chemistry. I had to take it 3 times. My dad had to help me get through it. I'm really not very good at physics. I'm not really that great at math either. What I am good at is speaking with people, connecting with people, writing, reading, just getting up close and personal with people and being comfortable with it. And so it took me a long time. It took college, going to nursing school, realizing nursing school wasn't right for me, going to getting an MED in working with early childhood and children, then realizing that wasn't for me either, then putting all of those loves together because I love women's health, I love kids, and then going after my MPH and then realizing, okay, cool. Now I'm kind of where I want to be because I love maternal and child health. And then realizing communications was still too big for me to ignore. And now working at an Ivy League medical institution doing the communications for all of the research happening there. So it's taken a really long time for me to even embrace the fact that I do have certain strengths, but I have to mold my life to it. And the thing is that while you might feel boring and while you might feel like you're not bringing much to the table, you have this entire backpack full of superpowers that you just need to kind of weld through and go through and be like, I am the best at this one thing. This is what I'm going to take forward. And this is what I'm never changing about myself. And I think that when you start examining those superpowers and you start looking at what you're really, really good at and you hang on to those things, it starts building that confidence so that you can walk into a room and recognize that you are the best at that one thing, or you are very darn good at it and you are going to be able to put it forward for the rest of your life. And that is your, this one thing that you are fabulous at.
My answer is a little bit different. I agree with everything that you said, but some people are born with confidence and I'm jealous of them. You are so lucky. I wasn't. I actually lacked a lot of confidence. The fact that I'm doing this today, I'm just like, wow, I can speak to these people, even though it's virtual. It's amazing. But what I did was to help improve my confidence is put myself in situations that were out of my comfort zone. And so I remember in college, I told myself that I would sign up for the dance team and audition for it. And that was something that was nerve-wracking to me because, I didn't know if I was going to be good enough. I didn't know if I didn't have the confidence to do it. So I started making a list of things that I could do every day, every month that could help me build my confidence. So maybe it was striking up a conversation with a stranger at a supermarket to see, can I even hold a conversation with someone random? And that eventually helped me with my speaking skills, and here I am today. So I think that looking online also to find ways that you can help your confidence level and taking in account to your day-to-day is super important. I think you have to put yourself out of your comfort zone if you are not confident and want to be, because for me, it didn't come naturally. And so I definitely think that it's a learning process.
I agree with that. I think that's a really poignant point. Like to be able to step out of your comfort zone, and because when you're insecure, that's what you deem as your weakness, right? Like those are the things that you don't think are you're strong at. Those are the things that you're like, oh, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. Prove it. You are all those things.
You are.
And you just have to kind of push yourself and do something that you didn't think you could. And you're like, oh, I'm smarter than I thought I was.
Yeah.
And that little, like it starts edging up toward actually having confidence in yourself with those same things that you deemed weaknesses before.
Yes, exactly. Cool.
On that note, we actually have another question that says, you guys are always discussing important issues on the podcast, which is so important. Can you share how you've personally been navigating your roles in your communities, especially when you are uncomfortable and constantly changing given the current global climate?
Good question. You guys are really full of good
questions. These are really good questions.
I'm kind of liking this. Yeah. No, it's making me think. So one of the things growing up, I grew up in a very, very white town. So for those of you that don't know, I actually grew up in State College, Pennsylvania. It's the home of Penn State University. And it's like 70,000 people and like surrounded by cows is like basically our entire existence, right? And it's very white. Most of the people and most of the diversity are related to the university, and everything surrounding is relatively rural. And the reason I bring that up is because I didn't grow up with very many South Asians around me, and I never felt Indian enough. That stuck with me through college. It stuck with me, even though I was on dance teams and things like that. It just didn't really serve as enough. I still didn't ever quite feel like I fit that mold. I never would have guessed that I would be heading up a South Asian podcast and that I would be doing a lot of events around South Asian identity, or that we'd be speaking to people like you and having the opportunity to really bring this forward. I never would have imagined that. And so in terms of involving in our communities, I think I've become less focused on the activity itself and being the center of attention as a dancer, center of attention as, because I was a dancer for so long, or as an author or anything like that. And rather, I've taken on the role more of how do we move our entire community forward? Not just how do I grow as a dancer or how do I, become a better author or whatever, but how do my actions impact everybody around, and how do we lift all of us together? One of the things that I constantly say about this podcast especially is, this isn't the space for me and Nehal to take the stage and talk up a storm. It's also to nudge that stage to make it a little bit bigger so that everyone else can start coming on and telling their stories as well. So, there is a lot of pressure, I think, with all of these issues and the way that the world works. We learn every day, but you also have to kind of give yourself the grace to learn. We're not experts on everything. We're not going to know everything. There are certain things that we're pretty darn good at, and there's certain things that we really suck at, and that, we're just going to have to kind of do the work on and learn. And so we give ourselves a bit of grace. We will always admit when we're wrong. And, there's the ultimate goal is that people in our communities can speak up for themselves as well. That is our role in the community, is to let people be able to tell their own stories, because they're going to tell them better than us. I can't speak to what it's like, growing up maybe in a more impoverished area, or growing up inner city, because I grew up in, Bumblefudge, Pennsylvania. Like, I can't speak to all of these stories. And so my goal and my role is to make the platform bigger so that everybody else can tell their stories too. And my goal in that particular moment is to learn from them.
I think also a huge part to add on to that is advocacy. I don't think it's enough to be part of a community, because anybody can join any community based on their race, identity, sexual orientation. But I think it's important to advocate for that community. And so I'm part of the Rajasthani, I'm part of the Rajasthani Association. And so that was a really cool experience for me to kind of get involved with that and do a lot of the director level things for that organization. But also that's just like the starting point. We started doing a lot of volunteering for Rajasthan, like Rajasthani countries, and just participating, how we can donate money, how can we donate books to the kids there. And I think doing that work has kind of built up this persona of wanting to advocate for your community. And that's just one part. And like Annika said, again, there are so many different communities, part of the entire South Asian diaspora, any area in the world. And it's really important for you to get involved and understand like what those issues might be and how you can help out.
I do appreciate this, this matter of platforming. I feel like we live in a, technological environment now where it's actually so easy for people to create platforms for themselves. Obviously, there are pretty high platforms that have kind of blockers for certain populations, which is frustrating. But you guys took it upon yourself to say, well, I'm just going to have my platform. Thank you very much. And that is very empowering. That is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been really eye-opening too, because we try and interact with other businesses and other platforms that are trying to rise. Instagram's a really big one, right? Everybody who is on Instagram knows that you can just be bombarded by photos and accounts and whatnot. And one of the things that we try and do is talk to a lot of people about that, and interact with a lot of different accounts and people behind them who are trying to raise awareness for whatever issues they're talking. So South Asian mental health is a huge one, but mental health here, obviously, it's an issue across the globe, right? So one of the things that we do is try and interact with a lot of different accounts and do some cross collaborations, work together, network, create a community out of this, so that the platform is not our own, but eventually serves to kind of bolster a greater purpose. And, you get to create this really amazing community of people. So now it's not just a South Asian podcast. It's a South Asian podcast working with 4 mental health organizations, 12 different sexual health organizations, people who are supporting LGBTQ people, people who are working toward, economic equity. And you're working towards all of these different things. And together you're really forming a powerhouse organization, of just this massive network making change. And so, it comes back to, what's your role in all of this? And, what do you want your platform to stand for? And then how are you going to use that platform to network across others and help them sort of raise their voices as well?
I have a really interesting question here.
Yeah.
I love interesting questions.
Platform being soapboxy, right? It says, even if it's with the best intention, millennials can come off as preachy. What should we consider when starting a dialogue so that it's an informative discussion and not a speech on a soapbox?
And I think the answer to that actually is making sure that you're open to a bunch of different answers. Because I think that Annika and I, with our platform, we definitely have our own opinions, but we need to be mindful that our opinions are just our opinions and other people will have a bunch of different ones. And so making sure to just be inclusive, open-minded, I think that's one of the biggest things.
And I think that the other thing going along with what you were saying, Noel, is that, we've just spent the last half hour or so, preaching at all of you too. And, one of those things, and then it's just it's a real like life example, right, of what we're doing. And I think that in order not to do that and to not only, talk the talk, but walk the talk, like, walk the walk, walk the talk, is sort of, you have to get real with yourself. Once again, this constant state of introspection, this constant state of where you stand on things, what you value, what you want to represent is really, really important. Like, you have to level with yourself. I don't like preaching about things I don't know much about. And, if you're going to talk to me about career pivots, champion career pivoter here. So I will feel very comfortable about that. If you're going to talk to me about, if you're going to be like, oh, can you talk about this one thing that you're not an expert in and that you know nothing about? Like, I'm 100% okay telling you no and saying, like, I do not feel comfortable talking about that because I don't know enough. I can't preach to you about that.
And going off of that, we've gotten a lot of heat on our podcast actually for sometimes saying things that we might not be fully educated on. And so we've learned from that from season 1 to season 3. And now before every episode, we do so much research. We try to learn all of the different point of views for any topic in case somebody was to say something, we would have an answer for them to say, oh, we read this article or check this out.
And we still get annihilated sometimes. It's okay.
Yeah.
It happens.
I know. Social media trolls are real. And I think there's a lot of questions also around social media. So I'm just going to say, like, it's going to be very hard for you to stop comparing yourself on social media and actually dealing with those hateful comments. But you can do it. We are still learning. There are times where we get a bad review on our podcast and it really hurts us, but it's making yourself stronger and realizing, this is just one person's view. This is one person, what they think. And what they said, like, is there something that you can improve from it? If it's a criticism, I love that. Okay, we're going to take that in. We can improve our audio or we can improve a part of our podcast. But is it just straight up troll? Are they saying you guys suck? Okay, please tell me why. Why do we suck?
There's validity in everyone's opinion. So we might be sitting here and preaching right now, and there's obviously 9 billion Instagram accounts that are doing the same exact thing, preaching about what they're passionate about. Yeah. But I guess it just kind of comes down to knowing who you are and what you stand for. And that way, when what might seem preachy is like also something that you really believe, something you're actually living. And it's the most authentic version of you, as opposed to, you just talking for the sake of hearing your voice, or you just talking for the sake of talking about what's hot, and really, really believing in what you're trying to push out there.
I appreciate that, the courage to kind of make mistakes publicly and to be okay with that. And like, there's always time to come back and rectify if you have said something that was like, oh, actually not accurate, or, whatever it is. There's room for that. We are going to be wrapping up fairly shortly. We've got about 10 minutes left. Okay. Are there any sort of final messages that you would like to leave with our listeners? Oh, wait, we got one more question. Here we go. Well, what are the ways that friends and family members can support anyone dealing with mental health? Maybe we can end with this communal kind of topic.
Like I mentioned earlier, I think it's being open and receptive to someone coming up to you and saying, hey, I need to talk, and being there for them. Again, with the whole knowing what you need and who you need it from. Another thing, and I don't want to just say this happens with South Asians, because in the South Asian community, I feel like a lot of times therapy is looked down upon, or therapy is not something you can easily talk to your parents about. But I think that's one thing family members and friends can do, where we can make therapy the new norm. Let's talk about going to therapy. Let's all be in therapy. We all have problems and questions that we can't deal with on our own, and not even talking to our friends and family members. And I think that is the biggest thing, to have that conversation and be like, okay, it's okay to get outside help. It's okay to seek help. And that's it. That's all I have to say. I think that therapy was something, especially for me growing up, was, even now, I don't think I would, I've been to a therapist. I would not tell my parents at all, because I don't think they would understand. They would say, why are you paying $100 to someone for something I can tell you? But that it's not about that. I think it's about going into that setting, talking to someone who has a degree in that, or can help you look at other ways to solve the problem. That's not just A to B, but maybe there's a C, D, E, or F. You don't know.
Going to piggybacking off that, I am in therapy. I will tell that to all 200 of you right now that I can see on Zoom. I know that there's plenty more on social media. So yeah, I'm in therapy. I am relatively a pretty well-adjusted adult. I'm clearly quite functional, and it's just a great outlet. So if you guys are looking for a nudge to go into it or to just seek it out and, need support from somebody who's not going to stigmatize that, by all means, you have mine. Go do it. And in terms of helping family members, there's one really, really important fact that I hope that everybody kind of takes to heart. When people come to you to say, my mind feels weak, that's basically the most vulnerable that you can ever get with somebody. Because in that moment, you're telling them this organ in my head, this organ is not working properly right now. I don't feel good enough. You are getting as real as you possibly can when you tell somebody that. And when someone's telling you that, they're exposing literally their nerve. They're exposing a nerve, and they're telling you that they are not in the best place that they can be. Whether that's coming to you with a problem or whether that's coming to you with something serious, like I have anxiety, I have depression, I'm suicidal, whatever it is. So in that moment, it's not about you. And that's something that I just, cannot emphasize enough. In that moment, we all want to jump to, how do we fix this? Like, how do we give them solutions? How do we do this? In that moment, they're the most vulnerable they could possibly ever be. It is not about you to fix it. It's okay that you're not going to be able to fix it. In that moment, you just have to roll with what they're trying to say and truly listen and ask them what they need. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that will open up the conversation for them to be able to tell you. And if you offer them support, say it's unconditional. It has to be unconditional. It can't be, I will help you as long as you don't go to therapy. I will help you if you go to therapy, but I can't really help you otherwise. It is, I will do everything in my power to be there for you unconditionally. This is not about me. This is about you. And I respect the fact that you are being so vulnerable when you're talking to me about it. And I think that those 3 points are incredibly, incredibly important to approach anybody with mental health issues.
I also think language is really important. My friends and I, even my boyfriend and I, have changed our way of kind of talking to each other. Instead of asking each other, how are you? We ask, how are you feeling? Because you can be good every day, but you can be feeling very shitty or feeling really bad about the things that are happening in your life. So making sure next time you talk to your friend, go up to them, your family member, tell them, be like, how are you actually feeling today? Because how are you just doesn't cut it anymore.
It's true. I just want to shout out for listeners that there are also a lot of methods of therapy. There's much more than talk therapy, right? I come at this from the background of body therapy. There's a lot of things that can be helpful, including like body therapy, expressive arts therapy, dance therapy, music therapy. There's if talking is not your jam,
and it's not for some people. So, by all means, it's just like what, we've all been talking about this last, 40 minutes or so, is the fact that know yourself. So if you know yourself and you know that talking is not the best way to do things, art is better, there is a therapy for that. Yeah. There is a way to help yourself by using the things that work for you. It comes right back to knowing what's in your backpack, knowing your superpowers, and knowing your weaknesses and what works for you.
I also love all the questions that we're getting. And unfortunately, since we are wrapping up, I just also want to say, please connect with Annika and I on social media and ask us your questions. We would love to answer them, or maybe even host another discussion at some point, because these questions are great. People are hitting on racism, colorism, everything. I really would love to talk about it more.
It's absolutely, these questions are incredible. So by all means, we're going to give you our contact information. Please, please, please reach out to us. You'll get answers from me and Nehal, and we would love to have a conversation and dialogue. If you guys think we're idiots, then that's okay too. We'll talk about that as well.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I just want to shout out just a few other things from my own perspective, things for mental health: exercise, strength training is especially shockingly helpful. Take a cold shower. It will literally slap you out of whatever you're feeling.
It's a cold water slap.
Yes. For me, heartfulness meditation has been very helpful, especially when facilitated by a trainer. When I do it by myself in a state of anxiety, it actually isn't that helpful, but with the trainer, it's very helpful. Thank you so much for joining us, listeners. Thank you so much for listening. You can find the Woke Desi. It's available on all your standard streaming platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Google, Apple. You can follow Annika and Nehal on all your standard social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Thank you for sending in all of your questions. I look forward to joining you as a participant in all of the upcoming workshops this weekend. And with that, I would love to hand this back over to our hosts, Janani and Manav. Thanks.
Thank you for having us. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ali. It was so incredible to listen to Annika's and Nehal's story. And Ali moderated that discussion so gracefully. I feel like we're all friends and we just had like a little conversation. Thank you for opening up with us. And I feel like the tone is perfectly set to move on to our more intimate breakout session workshops. Now we bid adieu to our live audience. Let us transition to our summit participants now, because the next portion of our day will be more interactive. So I'm just going to pause to let the live stream end a little.